I'm not going to say too much about this, but I want to point out how I met President Zaglul. Actually, we have a mutual friend who is a former trustee at Wellesley College, Lois Juliber. And I met Lois through the president of Wellesley, who introduced me to a number of their alumni who were quite interested in Olin. Lois is the president of the MasterCard Foundation, which is, I think, an investor in Earth University. And Lois said, after I made some talk at Wellesley about what Olin was doing, you have to meet Dr. José Zaglul. She said, who is that? Well, he started this new university in Costa Rica. And well, I've been to Costa Rica, I think, once for some other thing, and I didn't know about Earth University. So she arranged for the two of us to meet in New York. And as we sat down and said, well, how do you deal with admission? And I said, really? She said, well, what about the faculty? How do the students onboarding, and what did they do when they leave? You don't know about entrepreneurship, do you? This was like looking in the mirror. I was shocked. Now, Earth University is not an engineering school. It's about sustainable agriculture and other things. And the more I got to know about him, the more fascinated I was. And then we had this opportunity with this young lady standing next to me, who is a former associate dean for Olin, Sarah Spence Adams, who had a reason to be in Costa Rica some years ago and is now traveling, looking at other educational models, and went to Costa Rica to visit Earth University. So I'm going to ask her to introduce our speaker.
Sure. Thank you, Rick. Welcome, everybody. So as Rick said, I just came back from a trip to Earth University, and that came about. Rick and I were talking one day, and he said, have you come across Earth University in your travels? And I said, no, I haven't. And so I started Googling it, and then I followed up with an email to Rick. Okay, I've got to get there. And Rick helped put that together. While I was there, I gave a talk on my last day asking the people at Earth how they might want to collaborate with Olin. And this is one of the slides that I put on my deck. The people at Earth, it's not raining, it's so hot that they have umbrellas to keep the sun off. And of course at Olin, it's cold and snowy. So this got a big chuckle. In a sense, we're as different as you could be. But in another sense, we are, just like Rick said, mirror images of each other. So I'm not going to go through these things in detail, but José and I have been talking today, and every time we talk, we come up with new things that are resonant between our two schools. I think that my original trip to Earth was to contribute to the conversation on campus about doing good in the world, but since I was on sabbatical, I got to travel quite far to look at that. Not sure which. I hit the back button. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to look at places that were doing good in the world, and you can't get much more direct mission to do good in the world than what you'll find at Earth. They're working on sustainable development and sustainable agriculture. But what I found when I got there was that the underlying values of our two schools match up incredibly well. So the two main things that I could talk about, there are a lot of details here that are just fascinating because you can't believe all the coincidences, but both schools are looking to develop ethical, tolerant leaders who can lead diverse teams. That came out loud and clear in everything that they're doing at Earth and everything we're aspiring to do at Olin. And also the student-centered experiential learning. So I think that Olin could learn a lot from the way that Earth is doing their long-term projects on campus. And I've been speaking to Olin students and Olin faculty and staff about potential opportunities. And as we talk today, I feel like I've met my kindred spirit. José has an amazing sense of humor. We're already good friends. I'm planning my next trip back there. But I think in the future, we could have some amazing collaborative opportunities for our students and Earth students to be working together on projects. There are a lot of really perfectly placed projects for both populations of students. So that's for the future, but for today, I want to just extend my warm welcome. I'm excited for all of you to get a glimpse of Earth University from its founding president, and he may let it slip what age he started being the founding president of a new university that receives far more visitors than even Olin receives every year. It's a real beacon in Central America and the humid tropics, and maybe he'll let it slip how old he was when he started as president of this amazing university.
Thank you. I was 10. President Olin, thank you for inviting me. I was going to say thank you for the risk of inviting me, but now I know why you're leaving in 1 year. That's why you didn't invite me before. You know, being president of Earth, when I am introduced, is sometimes it leads to, strange reactions. President Obama came like 3 years ago to Costa Rica, and I was with a group that received him, and he comes, says, I am Barack Obama, President of the United States. I tell him, I'm José Zaglul, President of Earth. Well, I can't tell you the surprise, but I told him, maybe one day you can do it. So I was very fortunate to have this guy here to help me. Thank you. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how this university had started. But before I do that, I also want to talk about my personal experience. Maybe I didn't have all the background that you showed before in terms of studies about, all what you have talked before, but my personal experience also took me to, with the staff and support universities, to define what Earth is today. I want to show you first where Costa Rica is. Yesterday I was registering and I said I'm from Costa Rica. I said, oh, this beautiful island. I said, no, it's not. First of all, it's not an island. And second, Costa Rica is a country that has on the Atlantic side the rainforest. And the rainforests of the world have between 50 and 80% of the biodiversity of the world. So we have a campus there, which is the main campus, and then we have one in what we call the dry tropics. This year has been extremely dry and hot. That's in the northwest on the Pacific side where we have another campus, but we started like Earth. Our founders, I think they were great. They wanted to put the word Earth in a Latin American institution. So they put Earth, and then they found how to describe those acronyms. So they write Escuela de Agricultura de la Región Tropical Húmeda. So it came out Earth. So we have used Earth as our name. This is the campus. We have in the Atlantic side about 8,000 acres. That's where we are located. Obviously, there's a primary and secondary forest. We have a banana plantation of 300 hectares. And on the Pacific side is 4,000. This is on the Atlantic and the rainforest. And it's an innovative 4-year program. When I say full-year program, we start in January, the second week of January. Classes start at 6:30 in the morning, and we finish on Saturday at noon, and classes finish on December. So students graduate with 202 credits. It's very intense. We all live on campus. We have research and academic areas, and also what we call the private enterprise as a commercial farm that is managed with a CEO independently from the academic part, but with the same mission and principles. I I want to tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Costa Rica in a small town called San Ramon. It was very rural at that time. My parents are Lebanese, both of them. They met in Costa Rica. My father came to Costa Rica thinking he wanted to study. He never made it after third grade, but he couldn't study, so he met my mom there. They got married. We had 3 sisters, and I was born. When I was 1, they decided to go back to Lebanon. He had made some money. Actually, I learned how to walk on the boat, and sometimes people think I'm drunk, but really, when you walk on the boat, you walk like this. We were 1 month on the boat going back, and then after 5 years, again, he didn't make money. He lost all the money, and he knew that the only way for us to get out of poverty was education. And that has impacted me in my life later, because at that time I didn't know. I came back also walking in the boat for a month. We came back to the same town, and I really understand now why education was so important and the sacrifice he and my mom did for my sisters and another brother that was born there, that we had an education. It was the only way to get out of poverty. And I see it today compared to my grandfather, who passed away many years ago, and my dad and my mom, what a difference education has made for myself and my siblings. So education is extremely important, and that's why I felt very committed over the years about education. This is some of the school I went to, and I'm putting this picture here because I was discussing with some of your guests that, we want to do good. And when you study in a rural area, in a public school usually, and when you don't have the best professors, and then you go to high school, and then when you want to apply to university, you never get a chance. So who gets the chance to go to college? Usually are the people that come from, I guess, better off families, go to urban high schools, to very good schools. They even have training to take the entrance exam. And so we end up giving opportunities to those that have more and deny opportunities without realizing that we're doing that to those that have less. And once I heard the president of a university telling me, we want the best and the brightest student. I said, how do you define the best and the brightest? By an entrance exam? That's fake news. So I think we have to change the way we accept students and give opportunities to those that need it most. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but I did decide to go to Lebanon to study at the American University of Beirut. I didn't speak English. I didn't know how to take an entrance exam. I was a good soccer player. I think that's the reason they chose me. No, it took me like 2 years to train myself, to learn English, and finally made it to the American University of Beirut. And then I started thinking, I was very lucky, but what about the kids that come from that rural area that probably would have never have a chance to go to college because they are not trained for that. Although they want to go, they don't even know where to go. So if we want to do good, let's look at those people too. I also was shocked when I went to Lebanon from Costa Rica. I thought everybody was Catholic and everybody spoke Spanish. I got to Lebanon, it's a totally different culture. There are all religions, political parties, people from, and I realized that although we look different, really we have so many similarities. We all have the same desires. We all have the same challenges. We all want to do good and to succeed in life. And really we are not that different. We make ourselves different. But we are one society. And look at this planet. We are destroying the planet, destroying our only home. There is no redundancy. The space shuttle is not even flying anymore. So we don't have another planet to go. And if you look at the scientific data, perhaps in 12 years we'll be at an irreversible point. So we are one society in one home, and that's the only home we have. And my experience in Lebanon changed totally my life, of looking at other people, respecting other cultures, and realizing that I was born in Costa Rica from a Catholic family, but my roommate, who was from Turkey, was Muslim. I mean, it's not his fault. He was born in Turkey and he was Muslim, and the other guy is from Syria, and the other guy is from Lebanon. I mean, we were just born, but we are all the same. How can we understand that? And look at the world, how much hate and violence. After the Cold War, we thought it was going to be the new century of peace, and I think we've had more wars now than during the Cold War. And I lived part of it. I lived in Lebanon during the beginning of the war. This was downtown Beirut that was totally destroyed. And I was surprised how people that were so sweet and nice and hospitable all of a sudden become violent, involve themselves in the war. Hatred becomes part of the society if we don't control it. And by going back to this slide that I wanted to show, is that now that we talk about technology and learning by computers, one of the greatest things about university is learning and sharing with others. We have to celebrate diversity rather than fight diversity. And the campus is a great place to form those friends and people that stay all your lives, if you understand them. So participating beyond the classes in social events and sports is part of the great learning experience that you get on campus. So when I saw this, and I came from a country that last year we celebrated 70 years of abolishing the army. We haven't had an army for 70 years in Costa Rica. And we are the oldest democracy in Latin America. And we celebrate elections every 4 years, and it's a big holiday. It's not a fighting. And I hope it continues that way. So when I came back, I said, I think education can change the world. I was lucky to study in a rural school. I had classmates from different backgrounds, from the poorest of the town to the nephew of the president. And I said, I think I'll dedicate my life to education and love, except of hatred and war. And I was very glad that I think Wendy mentioned the word love in her presentation, because I think that love, which is the greatest of all values, we don't mention it in business and in academia. I think we feel ashamed to say love. But love is the greatest value. We are ethical if we love. If we love, we can be much better teachers, because we love the student and want them to learn. So I came back to Costa Rica, worked in a banana company, and I'll tell you the story later about the banana company. And then went to Florida to get my PhD. I thought that I needed to study more. So I went to Florida, got my PhD, went back to Costa Rica, and started working at the State University. And then we were caught in the middle of the Cold War, when Central America was the hot spot of the Cold War. The Sandinistas were in Nicaragua, the Contras were fighting from Honduras, Salvador had a war. In Panama was Noriega. Again, Costa Rica, Lebanon used to be called the Switzerland of the Middle East. Costa Rica is called the Switzerland of Central America. Actually, I used to call Switzerland the Costa Rica of Europe. And I said, oh no, again, this is the Lebanization of Costa Rica. Costa Rica became like Beirut, when all the spies were there and everybody was coming to Costa Rica to fight Honduras, and it happened the same in Lebanon, in Beirut, where people were going to fight the neighboring countries, and we always said nothing is going to happen to Lebanon. And we spent 15 years of war that didn't solve anything. So it was during that time that the East and the West were sending money for war. The Soviet Union, supported by Cuba, were supporting the communists, and the US was supporting the Contras. And they wanted to give money for Costa Rica, and we didn't even have an army. And the president at that time, Don Luis Alberto Monge, said, don't give us money for war. We need a university, we need education, and if we educate the right people, we can change the world. And guess what? USAID and the Kellogg Foundation initially, that had nothing to do with USAID, gave money to start this institution. Of course, I was at the State University and was against it. I thought it was an imperialistic plot, and went out to the streets, saying, no way, they're not going to have Earth here. They're probably going to train the military to fight Nicaragua or whatever. Well, one day the announcement comes out that they are looking for the president of this university. So I sent my application because I knew I was not going to be selected, and I said, well, we'll see what happens. To make a long story short, I went for the last interview. We were 5 people that were left. I was the only Costa Rican. I said, these guys probably saw my picture. And in the interview, I had a good job in a research center, and so I told them I didn't believe in training military people in a school like this, and that, I told them everything I thought, and I was very happy with, because I wasn't going to get the job. And the next day they called me and said, you have been selected. So I went to my mom and said, what do I do now? They gave me a great lesson. Everything I was talking about, I was repeating what I heard. I didn't investigate whether that was true. I thought AID was CIA, I don't know. And I was just reacting and not understanding that the purpose was really to create this new university. And we started from zero. We had this huge property. There was no buildings, no curriculum. I was the first academician that they hired, and so we had the chance to define how we wanted the buildings, how they wanted to create the curriculum. In those days, we didn't have to discuss too much. With 2-3 people would decide. President Miller, it's probably better to start from zero than with a lot of these departments. And we define our mission very clearly. Prepare leaders with ethical values to contribute to sustainable development and construct a just and prosperous society. We didn't talk about science, about engineering, about agriculture. We talk about forming a leader that will change the world. And we wanted our vision, the star that we wanted to get, is we wanted to alleviate poverty, promote social justice, and build a future where communities achieve sustainable and shared prosperity. That's our goal. That's where we all want to go. Whatever we do, that's where we want to go. And when we were defining the the curriculum, we had a meeting since I had worked in the banana company. During the time I worked, a lot of people were affected by chemicals they use that they become sterile workers. And I worked for the company. And at the beginning, we had 800 acres planted to bananas on campus. So we wanted to do research. So we asked the chemical companies and the banana companies, why don't we get together? You give us money for research, and we'll find out the impact on people. So we came to Atlanta, as a matter of fact, met with them. People from Clemson were working with us. And I found my old boss. So I was very happy to see him there. So we said, listen, we need money to do research in agriculture, especially in the effect of bananas, because it was very questioned all over the world, the impact of bananas and chemicals and plastic, etc. And they said, okay, we'll do the research, we'll fund you, but you give us the results first. If we like what happens, you can publish. If not, you cannot publish. I said, no, we cannot do that. So they got us out of the room. And I'm telling you this story because when we talk about business, I think we have to be ethical. So after the meeting, we were in a coffee break, and I met with my old boss, and I told him, hey, but why we need to resolve this situation if we are poisoning people or we are spreading over the people that are still working in the field? He says, Jose, why are you worried because they are sterile? I said, well, because they don't have children, and sometimes there is social problems. The woman gets pregnant. Maybe he wasn't sterile, and they have a fight, and it has caused a lot of problems, social problems. I said, we are doing you a favor. You have an overpopulation in your country. Are you talking to me? I mean, I'm from Costa Rica, and you're telling me that, what about your children if they are sterile? So I tell this story because I felt so frustrated. I became communist for 24 hours. And I said, we cannot have business like that. It's not about making money only at the expense of people, at the expense of the environment. We have to do business not as usual. And that's why, after that, we didn't do anything with them. I was very disappointed. So we started defining our project by ourselves, and we have 4 formative areas at Earth. One is we're very focused on social and environmental aspects. Everything we do, even if we play soccer, it has to be socially correct and environmentally correct. In every course, every class, personal development, attitudes and values. You were talking about what are values. Well, there are values that are the same through ages. Being honest is the same. Capacity to listen to others. Problem solving through dialogue. Not if you think differently, I'm going to kill you. No, we should be open and resolve problems through dialogue. Respect for whatever your religion, your color, your country. And of course, the technical and the scientific knowledge. And finally, we want job creators rather than job seekers. And we want entrepreneurs that do sustainable business. And I put these 4 ones because each one is as important as the others. If you get a low grade, actually a high grade in your technical and scientific part and even the entrepreneurship, but you are dishonest, you abuse of people, you flunk. It's not that you can get good grades and do the others. No, all of them have the same weight, or maybe the values have a greater, for us, a greater grade than the others. So we started with 60 students from 7 countries in 1990. Now we have 437 students from 36 countries, and about 86% come from rural areas. We started with 13% females. Now we have 51% females. And this is a professor that is in the admissions process. And I want to talk a little bit about the admissions process because we know that the students will not even find us, and we don't even know how to apply if we don't get to them. So from the very beginning, we decided to go to the most remote areas, and we go usually 2 faculty members, and get to schools, to high schools, and interview the students in that high school, and get to know, and then you find out that this kid wakes up at 5:30 in the morning, help his dad to milk the cows, he walks an hour, he goes to school, he attends school, he comes back home, he doesn't have electricity at home, they study with a candlelight. He's not going to score a high score in the entrance exam. But he's a kid, or she's a kid, that has been able to overcome all those barriers, that has the right attitude, the right values. So when you compare this girl or boy in that school, you know that she has the values, and we have them meeting on a personal level and then in a group level, and try to discover in them the best way possible their values, their attitude, their vocation, the desire to do good, and we pick the students based on that interview. We have 1,500 applications per year, and we choose 110. And 25% of our students come from Africa, the rest from all Latin America and the Caribbean, and we go to all the countries. Now, they say that that's very expensive. But education we cannot measure by economics only. If we want to break the rule paradigms, we have to think, we decided we'll do it. And guess what? We got foundations, private foundations from the US, governments that have provided the funding to do that and to sponsor full sponsorship of 70% of our students. And I'm talking about $40,000 per year. That includes a full year, includes room and board, studies and everything. So I think what they found valuable about our approach is that we are reaching out, and sometimes it's the first kid in the community that has ever graduated from university. And this is what I want to share with you. For me, from what I've learned in these 28 years, is that despite weak academic basis or good grades, candidates who demonstrate their leadership qualities and desire to learn can become excellent students and excellent leaders and professionals. And this is not a scientific study that in the sense that we started doing it from the first year, but we know that for 28 years, those kids that we chose, we follow each single one. We know where they are, what they are doing, and they have become great agents of change. So I wish we can convince universities that we need to change our process of admissions. Now the experiential and participatory learning process that you have is extremely important. We are student-centered learning. The student is the center of our job in the university. And what does that mean is that we care for the student. That poor student that comes from that area has next to him someone that comes from a private high school that is very skilled in math and science. So we cannot think that everybody learns at the same speed or condition, and the professor is someone that cares for the student and tries to unfold the qualities of that student. And that's, when I say when you teach with love, is that when you care that the student is going to be successful. I know many of you have been in classes, I hope there is no professor that does that here, that tells his students, you know, my course is very tough, only half of them are going to pass my course. When they tell you that, you're already feeling that you're in the 50% that you're going to fail in that exam. But we tell them, you can, if you put your effort, we're going to help you to be successful. So you stimulate, you give carrot to the student and put a third or fourth year student to help that kid. And what that does create also a sense of belonging, of teamwork. Now, the students in the classrooms, they are never doing what we're doing here. It's like your classes here. We put 5 students from different nationalities with the gender mixture, and they have to discover knowledge, and the professors are facilitators of the learning process. They are not the ones that tell you this or that. They just help you in the classroom, as you do here, to discover knowledge. And the idea also is that we also have the students mix with different socioeconomic backgrounds, so that the rich kid also understand the poor kid and vice versa. Sometimes they have ideas, very wrong ideas about each other. And again, after they go through this process of 4 years, they become, you know, a very close group. And when they go back to their countries, usually the kid from the better income helps the younger kid, the kid from the lower income families to find a job or put them, you know, they get in the political position, etc. And we want them to change the world. We want them to be in politics. We want them to be leaders. We want them to be proactive, but with giving back to the community. That's very important. It's student-centered, a values-centered program. And to do that, we choose the faculty the same way. We want faculty that are able to work with others. If they only want to do research, that's not good for Earth. We want them to, the universities were created to form the leaders that will improve the society. And what do? We evaluate faculty by how many papers they have published, which is not bad. But we don't evaluate them by how much they prepare the kids to be the leaders of the future, which what you're doing here. And I've not been able to convince another president to change that, because they say that we will not be accredited and given the number one. As if the university is important. The university is not important. It's the graduates who are important. But we always say, I am number one. Well, I don't care if you're number one if you're not graduating the right leaders, or you're graduating leaders that are corrupted. So experiential and participatory learning make a big difference in the educational process. Students who struggle due to their background should receive a special attention. And the adjustment of the evaluation system. Have you seen that we have put emphasis here in the learning process, not in teaching? In teaching, you want to teach and the students should tell you what you told them. Here, in the learning, what we are interested in the student to learn. But see what we do in the universities or in high schools is that, I take an exam, get a 50. The second exam, even if the same material, I get a 90. I already know the material that you wanted to teach me. But still, we average the grade. Why should we average? If he knows or she knows, why don't we give them a grade or because of what they know? Or maybe you got 90 and 90 and you said, in my final I'll get a 20. And they don't learn what's in the final. So I think we should think differently about how we grade and how we emphasize in the learning process. So the first year is very much similar to what we have here. We call it upside down curriculum. The students, the first week that they are there, they go to the field, they go to the community, they have to learn about, they have to experience, we're in the middle of the rainforest, they'll be out in the sun, in the rain, working with the cattle, with the tractors, they don't understand. It's very much like going to medical school, and the first day they put you in the emergency room. They don't know what's going on, but they know blood and this and that, and then later start getting the scientific part but they can relate the science to what they have seen in the first year. It makes sense to them. But the first year they have to form with other 5 kids with that gender mixture and socioeconomic background and from different countries, the business company that they have to have. So they have to get together, choose their classmates, and present a project. We become a bank and present a project to us to be financed or to get a loan to start a business. And they have to go from 0 at the end of the first year, form the group, and 2 years later they have to have completed the business, sold their products, marketed, it's a project it's a business that they do by themselves. It's not a class project. They have to do it in their free time on Sundays at noon, after lunch, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. And then they develop many products, but they totally change their mind after that entrepreneurial project. But entrepreneurial projects is not so much about how much money you make. Is if you do a business that socially and environmentally produces a positive impact. We cannot do business with a negative impact. Now, if you lose money, that's okay, because failure is part of the learning process, but not because you did not put attention and effort to get there. Now, these are 5 kids there. Now, if one of the kids doesn't do his or her job, they can expel the kid from the company. But for that kid to get into another company is going to be a terrible problem, because they know all each other. So they learn to work together. They learn to have discussion. They learn to define what product they want to sell. And this is what we call conflict resolution by dialogue. They have to come to agreement, and they have to agree what each one has to do. At the end, 30% of the net income, if they get it, comes as internal revenue. No, it comes back to the institution, and 2/3 goes for them. But now we find that instead of having repetitive projects, those that innovate and have a greater risk, we tell them, don't return 33% to us, only 10%, so to encourage them to do more innovative work. In the second year, we start, they continue with the entrepreneurial project, they do sustainable production, and every Wednesday we go to the communities, all of us, students, faculty, we go every Wednesday for the full day to work in the community. And by working in the community, we understand the challenges that the community has. And in the third year, it was very difficult to convince the faculty that the students were not going to use up all the money that they were going to lose the money in the business project, because no. And guess what? 70% of the project break even or make money. So the 33% that they are returning, it's increasing our budget for these projects, and we have learned a lot from them. Academicians are not the best business people, but we were forced by the students, because of the challenges they find that come to us, we became involved. And so it has become one of the greatest experience that they feel is the best for them. Now, in the third year, they interact a little bit more with communities. They spend 7 weeks living with a family in the rural area in the northwest part of the country. And they help the family solve a problem. They can also work with a bigger company because they need to know both. But with the family, sometimes they find that it's not really an agricultural problem what they have. Is that the daughter was going to get married and they sold the cow, and then now they don't have a cow, and they can't get the milk. So they get exposed to all kinds of social and agricultural problems, and they become much more sensitive to what the community has. And then in the third year, all the third year students go to different countries of the world to do what we call an internship, which should be an externship. But they go and work with a company. And we have somebody we agree with, a supervisor in the company, and we have a faculty member that also is responsible. So we've had them in New Zealand, in Australia, in the Middle East, in Europe, in the US. And at the beginning we thought that we may not have enough places to send them, but now we have more demand for them because it's 100 students that go every year. And when they're going to go to this internship, I used to offer a dinner the day before they go, and they are so nervous, they think they don't know anything, and they go for 3 months. And when they come back, you can't stand them because they think they know everything. But don't send them to a university, send them to the private sector. It's a great learning experience, but what we usually do, send them to another university. But they become exposed, and sometimes, as somebody was saying here before, we're surprised that companies want to get them out because of their responsibility. One time I visited a student in Panama, in the mountains of Chiriquí, where they're producing potatoes for one of the burger companies. And our graduate, our intern was telling the workers that they had to protect themselves to mix the chemicals, that they had to put a mask, that they had to respect. So the guy told me, no, I want this kid out of here. He's getting my workers to be against the company. But they wasn't against the company. He was telling them how to be protected. And this is at least this is what they have to do, really. So sometimes we feel that they have to overcome, like that graduate student that was put the example here, they have to overcome the challenges, and some of them have quit their jobs of the graduates because their values they are not compatible with that company. And in the fourth year, they have to demonstrate their intellectual and professional capabilities. They have to write a thesis. They become also like the managers of those kids that have the Wednesday field experience. They become like their bosses so that they know how to treat others in a managerial way and respectfully. But they also have to write. They do a project thesis, and they have much more independence of themselves in the fourth year before they graduate. This is what I just told you, that what we learned is that the internship, although at the beginning other universities did not want to accept that we gave them credits when they go out, but it's a great learning experience. And one thing I will say is that for the students to have the values that we want, for the respect that we want each others to have, it has to be all the people that work in the university. I mean, we can't tell your kid, don't smoke if you have a cigarette in your hand. I mean, you can give the kid all the theory behind it, he or she's going to smoke, but the faculty has to behave with the same ethics that we want the students to follow. Values are taught by example too. So we have a code of conduct. We have a process from, if there is something, we have a student participate in the committee, the conduct committee, also with faculty and staff. And as human beings, we don't promote so much the individuality also. Sometimes when we give an Earth Award, and the students give an Earth Award for the best classmate, and we don't give it to the best, doesn't necessarily has to be the best, the student that has gotten the highest grade. It's the student that has participated more with the helping other students, has more community outreach, that spends time even in social activities. And since these kids come from very poor families, they do something incredible. They have a fair every year where they bring about 10,000 people to campus, and they sell everything. They sell tours, they sell food, they sell food from their countries. No alcohol is served. They sell kisses, everything. And they make money to bring the parents, especially of the poorer students that from Africa or from Latin America, to come for graduation in December. But it becomes an entrepreneurial project, because all the expenses, they have to learn about expenses, about the revenue. They even have, so they have companies that come and they rent them the places, and it becomes a great commercial experience. Well, I wanted to show you this because we have also, don't take me wrong that we don't do research. This group here, we were the first Latin American institution that had research on space. I don't know if you've heard about the Chagas disease. Have you heard about the Chagas disease? The Chagas disease is transmitted by a bug that introduces a parasite into your bloodstream. And you can take care of it when it's in the bloodstream, but when it goes to your heart and muscles and esophagus. Once it's there, there is no way to cure it. And people think that you have died of a heart attack, but really it's what they have chewed the heart muscle. And there are about 300,000 cases in the States that you didn't know. Now you know because of this study. But we took components from the rainforest and crystallized proteins in space in zero gravity, almost. So you get perfect crystals. And then you try to find a blocking agent of vital enzymes of the parasite in order to kill the parasite and cure. The pharmaceutical companies don't want to do this research because it's called the poor man's disease. Not the parasite, the bug that transmits the parasite usually lives in thatch houses or in holes in the houses. So it mostly is poor people that get this disease. Again, if there is no money, we don't care about them. It produces more death than AIDS and in Latin America. It's endemic to Latin America, and the people that have gotten it here, it's because of blood transfusion. And now with the global warming, we have found the bug in the U.S. in the western state, in the southern states. So, so we did a lot of research also in bananas, even though we got that nice recommendation from my ex-boss. But with bananas, we eliminated the use of, we recycle all the, each banana bunch has a plastic that covers the banana. We were able to recycle all the plastic. We made paper out of the banana center because all of that plastic was thrown to the rivers and to the oceans. Costa Rica made a law that now everybody has to recycle the plastic. We don't spray over the workers. We use organic fungicides. And so when the board of Whole Foods came to Costa Rica, and the companies would not pay us, it cost us 25 US cents to do what we were doing per box of 40 pounds. That is, each pound was less than 1 cent, half cent. But in 1 million boxes is a lot of money. but they wouldn't pay that. So Whole Foods came to Costa Rica. They saw what we were doing. We told them we were not selling bananas. We are not a banana industry. What we want to sell is a dream of doing good business. And we want to teach the student that doing good is a good business. So Whole Foods started buying our bananas. You can find them now in Whole Foods. Please go and buy them. We got about $1 million net of profit. We sell Allegro coffee in Whole Foods. And so the Costa Rica government also has made it mandatory to do what Earth did. And it has now in Ecuador and other countries are doing the same. So the impact is it's great. And we can teach the students that, you know, good business makes money too. We don't have tenure at Earth. We have an evaluation system. At the beginning, faculty are evaluated every 3 years. Then we give them 5-year, extension of the program. And but it's very clear how they are evaluated by the students, by the faculty, by the outreach. All of them have to do outreach, student attention, some research, and we've seen that this provides stability. It's true, because many faculty have stayed for long, but also doesn't mean that you stay forever in the faculty if you don't follow, you know, the rules. So I just want to finish by saying that what you have been doing here has been, you know, fantastic in an engineering school. We have a program now with the Kellogg Foundation that is sponsoring after I left the university called Transforming Higher Education that I was discussing with President Miller. We would like other universities in the world to put emphasis in values, emphasis in experiential learning, emphasis in being ethical leaders. I believe that we, academic institutions, especially universities, can transform the world rapidly, because most of the leaders in the private sector or political arena or activists have come through our classrooms. If they had the right values, if they cared about society, not about themselves, if they cared about the world, we could have a better world. And sometimes it surprises me the kind of leaders that we have around. And we need to behave like a family, a society, caring for each other. And I think we can provide that leadership in our institutions. I hope we can change, and we can respect diversity, be more conscious of the poorer people in the world, that is, the gap is increasing, and the respect that we would have to have for each other. I think we can be a much better world. And let me tell you one thing before I finish. A student from the US has much more power than a student from Costa Rica. The president of your country has much more power than the president of Costa Rica, or the congressman. Well, not only Costa Rica, Bolivia, Ecuador, just name it, or the president of England, or minister of England. So we have a responsibility. I mean, you have as well as we do, but some have a greater responsibility because the impact that they have in the world. And after spending a lot of time with refugees in Beirut and learning about the experience of those people, and going to Bolivia and to Colombia and to these rural areas all over Nicaragua, I don't understand why we cannot live together in a peaceful world. I mean, I think we have to put emphasis in the values and the people. Science is good. I mean, we are going to be great engineers, but it's very important that we don't forget that we are educating the leaders of the future, and that is tremendously valuable. Universities can make the change, but we have to change first. Finally, this young lady is from Uganda. She got a job with Whole Foods in Africa, but decided to help the women that were in small cooperatives that were selling their products to an intermediary. She got them together. She got them in the internet, and now they sell their products, their product directly. She got an award in the Netherlands. This man here, where is he? Is from Honduras. He had a movement where they recuperated the land of the indigenous people that had been taken away since the time of the colony. He led the movement. This guy was a candidate, Celio Guerra, for the presidency of Panama. These guys are from better off families in Ecuador. They created the Latin American Green Enterprises. Now it's a worldwide gathering that they have every year, and there are thousands of new projects that have come up. This guy is the mayor of a town in Ecuador, Machala. Again, he's a politician. He has the same values of Earth. And that was an award that was given to us by the Afro-Colombian Congress, all the congresses of Colombia, because of the kids that we have brought from Chocó to learn at Earth and become leaders in the region. It's a little bit of show off to tell them that we can change the world. And I hope that that's a dream, but you have to dream to get somewhere sometime. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, what does it take to educate people to do good in the world? I think it starts with passionate leaders who are committed to values and to changing the world as a deliberate goal. I am very impressed with what you've done. It's a model for us. You're a little bit older than we are. You have a few more graduates than we have, but it's pretty clear that they're out making a difference. So I'm just so glad to meet you here on our campus. I'm looking forward to talking with you afterwards about your efforts to do work internationally. As you know, I'm trying to do something too. Yeah. So we're going to adjourn in just a second to go to the reception upstairs. We have some refreshments, some sort of, I think, heavy refreshments, if I understand correctly, so you can get some nourishment. I am going to read an announcement, which a couple of our faculty members asked me to do at this point, which is to say, as you know, Olin is one of the founding schools of the National Academy's Grand Challenge Scholars Program. This spring, for the first time, we're offering a credit-bearing course that students can take to complete their work in this program. Professors Rob Martello and Allison Wood, who was here not long ago, are teaching Change the World, Personal Values, Global Impacts, and Making an Olin Grand Challenge Scholars Program. The final project in this course is for each student to complete a personal vision and mission statement, which includes a personal essay and an artistic expression of their responses to the question, who am I and what is my place in the world? The public showcase for these projects is taking place right now, and we would love for you to join the festivities and to see what our students have been working on. It's in the Crescent Room, which is that room on the mezzanine of the dining hall, second floor. And the main showcase continuing until approximately 6 or 6:30 p.m. tonight. So feel free to drop in for as long or for as short as you want. And our refreshments here will stay until 7, so you can do both. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and energy today. And I look forward to talking with many of you personally in our reception. Thank you.